I'm Andrew Willett for A Pro Basketball Show. Follow and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, as well as following on social media at APBShow on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to follow me as well at the AC Willett 22. Thank you so much for tuning in, and without further ado, hello and welcome to A Pro Basketball Show. I am so excited, as always, to bring in one of my favorite guests. That's Nick Andre. Nick, he does a ton of work covering the NBA, the WNBA, basketball, just about anything you can think of. Nick is doing it right now. One of the busiest men I know. Nick, how you doing? Thank you so much for joining.
No problem, man. I'm doing great, man. It's a pleasure to be on once again. Second half of the W season has just begun about a few days ago, and there's a lot to talk about, man. So I'm very excited about.
Yeah, how'd you enjoy All-Star Weekend?
It was really fun. I really enjoyed it. From the skills challenge on to the 3-point contest. I just broke that. That was a spectacular round that she gave in the second round. I think she missed like 2 shots the entire round that they pushed out. And then, of course, also gave me the self shout out to Team School for getting the dunk shot, the Jewel for winning the MVP. So, overall, it was a fun weekend overall. Unfortunately, I wasn't there to actually experience it, but just watching from afar from TV it's too exciting. So I'm very happy with how this turned out.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat where I think like at some point, like we're gonna make it down there. We're gonna hit an All-Star game one of these years here soon. But yeah, had a great time enjoying it. The 3-point contest, pretty special. And then yeah, Jewel Lloyd did her thing in the All-Star game, and it was great to see Brittany Griner go out and play the way that she did. But today we're going to kind of venture off, instead of talking maybe some of the upper echelon teams in the W as we usually do. We're going to see and figure out who we think is not going to make the playoffs. And to do so, Nick, I've kind of separated kind of the leads in half, where I feel good about, obviously, the Aces, the Liberty, the Sun, the Dream, the Winds, and the Washington Mystics. Those are 6 teams I'm feeling pretty darn good about. I think they're making the playoffs. And that leaves 2 playoff spots at the very end, along with 4 teams that won't be making the playoffs. And that's what we're gonna talk about today. And I'm curious to see how you will rank these, but I'm gonna put you on the spot here because we're gonna basically run this like a draft where the 6 teams: Minnesota, Chicago, LA, Phoenix, Indiana, and Seattle. We are going to draft from 12th seed at the end of the year, who we think will finish last, all the way up until that 7th seed in the playoffs. See who gets those last 2 spots. And we're just going to discuss each of these teams. But starting out, Nick, like I said, I'm gonna be nice today and put you on the spot, make you go first. Who do you think is finishing last?
Probably the Seattle Storm. Right now, they are sitting at 4-17 on the year. I mean, it's been a big transition. Sue Bird retired the year prior, then of course Brianna Stewart signs with the Liberty in free agency. So it was a big transition for this franchise as far as what direction they can go. Obviously, they still have one of the best scorers in the WNBA in Jewel Lloyd. So this is really her first year to really take on that role as the one option as a franchise leader. So, and to a degree, I will be honest, she's really done a really good job. I really have loved her leadership, but I think the roster just, I'm not gonna say the roster is good enough, but I just don't feel like the experience is there. But I do love the players that they have. I love what Sammy Whitcomb has done this year for the team. Ezzie McElroy was an all-star. We talked about her in the last episode I was on. Mercedes Russell, Kia Nurse. I love Jordan Horson and what she's been able to provide as a rookie. So they have a lot of great personnel within the roster, but maybe there needs to be some more chemistry being built. I don't know if Coach Quinn needs to make a few adjustments within the lineups or within the plays or anything. But like I said, I love this team. I love the roster that they do have. I love the players that they have, but I just don't think this is their year, and that's perfectly fine. I think they're really building for the future. Like I said, Jewel Lloyd is a tremendous talent. This is her first year as a true number 1 option, so she has many more years to go where she can continue to elevate as a leader and possibly lead this team to playoffs.
Yeah, with this Seattle team, I'm glad you chose them as well because I see a lot of people making the argument that the Mercury are probably the best case to finish last in the W, and I just think like you've got a team with DT and Brittany Griner, that you guys are going to finish as probably not last. But I felt the same way with Seattle, where like I think at the end of the year especially it'll be a combination of hey we're just not that good but also let's try and get one of the better draft picks in the upcoming draft and so on and so forth. But no, I agree with you with Jewel Lloyd and Ezzy as we talked about like you said. But as we get into kind of the breakdown of each of these teams, what do you think the strengths and the weaknesses are over in Seattle?
So I think obviously, at least from what I've seen with the Storm, I think their strength. I do think that they do have tremendous size, especially in the front court. I think they do have that with Ezzy Maverick, Mercedes Russell, the list goes on and on. And then to a degree, I love the perimeter scoring. Obviously, Joe Lloyd, who is one of the best scorers in the W, but I do love what players like Keith Nurse has been able to provide, shooting from the outside. Jordan Horse, and the list goes on and on. Sammy Whitcomb. So those are probably my strengths as far as for them. And then for the weakness, like it was kind of tough for me to find a weakness, but like I said, I do love this team, and yes, they do have some young players. So I guess you could say experience has kind of played a role in this team, honestly, because like I said, I mean this isn't, I guess on paper it's not a bad team to me, but I do think experience. I think possibly playing together, having those lineups, I think that does kind of play a role in why they haven't been as successful as they obviously have been in previous years. So that's probably my weakness for them is probably the lack of experience that they do have, and that's something that they could possibly build upon moving forward.
Yeah, so I was right there with you on the weakness. I think, yeah, just young players where I liked a lot of the front court you mentioned. Ezzy's pretty young, though. Joyner Holmes, pretty young. Dulcie, pretty obviously a rookie. And then Jordan Horston as well. So I'm with you there. The strengths, I kind of went a different direction where I was like, I really like this team's fight. I think they oftentimes can find themselves down by a lot, but they're still in it. We've seen them make a couple of comebacks. I think it was a 21-point comeback against the Sparks earlier in the year. Nearly came back and beat Washington at one point. So I'm a fan of that. I'll go into the best lineup for Seattle, and then we'll discuss which of those pieces we think are long-term building blocks for this Storm franchise. Because, I mean, obviously, your best lineups then include your two All-Stars in Ezzy and Jewel Lloyd. And then I am hopeful that Gabby Williams is a part of that best lineup.
Yes, yeah, like on that last spot, I was going between Gabby and then the other four that I had, obviously Joel and Ezzy, but I also had Sammy Whitcomb and Mercedes Russell.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? For right now, I'm gonna agree with that. I would, and like maybe Kia Nurse in there, but
Oh yeah, how could I forget Keith Nurse?
yeah, Kia Nurse she's a dog, just coming back from that injury.
Yeah.
So I mean they've got a lot of good players. Where before Gabby Williams got back, it was Kia Nurse, but. So honestly, as we're going to go into these non-playoff teams, I feel good about the top six, but these bottom six, it's a loaded, like it's a deep league right now. Where I think Seattle, given some better circumstances, probably up there.
I agree. I mean, it's like I said. I mean, I like the roster on paper. I love it's like you mentioned. They do have a lot of fight. You mentioned the comeback that they had earlier in the season against the Sparks. Talk about them possibly. You talk about them competing against teams like Washington. Actually, I think I want to say maybe a few weeks ago they played New York and they kept it competitive in that game. That was the game where Sammy Whitcomb pretty much took over the game. She ended up dropping her piece of gum and they put it back in her mouth in that game as well. So I mean, this team has a lot of fight, man. I mean, you got to admit it. So even though the record says otherwise, if you have watched a good portion of these games, they have stayed in those contests and they have kind of overcame adversity, kind of find a way to win.
Yeah, you gotta feel good about your young team when they're able to go out and do that. So we go through kind of the best five lineup. We got to about 6 players. Now who are the long-term building blocks for the Seattle team? Because I'm hopeful it's Jewel Lloyd. Ezzy,
Definitely Jewel.
Jordan Horston,
Yeah, I'll say Jewel. I'll say Ezzy.
Ivana
Definitely Jordan
Dojtic.
Horston. That one too. I love her. I love what she's been able to bring to the table for the team.
All
Um,
rookie team candidate.
Pretty much. Honestly, I mean, like I said, I love this team. I'm kind of interested to see moving forward. Maybe they could use maybe one or two veteran presence. Like players with like the playoff experience to possibly help these young players to continue to develop moving forward. But besides that, I love this young team that they're building around Jewel. They have a lot of fight, they have a lot of energy. But it's like I think I think experience is kind of like it's kind of the downside of this team, honestly. And I think that has played a role in this year.
All right, yeah, and that fits right into kind of the plan for this team's future. You think a couple of veterans in the offseason being added might help?
Yeah, yeah, definitely add maybe one or two key veterans who, and look, they may not even have to play. I mean, this like they could be players like that could sit on the end of the bench and just be a voice on the sideline per se. So I mean, it's like I said, like they may not possibly see a lot of playing opportunity on the floor, but just being there in the practice facility, being there on the sideline, during games, trying to teach these young players what to do at this time and at that time, and then of course obviously the other building block is obviously Philip Rundgren. I feel like move forward, that's your franchise for however many years.
Yep. I know she did sign that contract extension, and I'm curious. Like, you think maybe some veterans to help the younger players, excuse me, develop, or maybe like you go and try and find that second star next to Jewel Lloyd.
I think you'll find the next to Joel Lloyd. I guess just even though Ezzy was an All-Star this year, I don't know if she primarily fits that ideal as far as being the second star. But if they were, to me, I don't know if it should be possibly an elite point guard or if it should be another wing. But I do think that they could find somebody who can take the pressure off Joel offensively, be able to create their own shot, being able to play, being able to put the ball in the foot. So that'll be very interesting to who they can get possibly in years to come.
All right, so that's going to lead us after Seattle, who I think will finish 11th. And I was high on Indiana, so I'll go with Phoenix finishing in 11th. Not far from 12th, which I was just talking about. But we have seen a little bit of fight here recently. Nick, what have you liked from the Mercury as of late?
It's funny. I haven't watched a lot of Mercury games. I didn't get a chance to watch the last one because they just beat Connecticut. Kudos to them, and they just barely
Chicago.
they just lost enough time. Yes. They just beat Chicago. So they just won. I mean, this is a good start. After All-Star break. Being able to get two big wins. I mean, Connecticut is to many is known as a contender. I know that Chicago's kind of like falling, but I still think that they can play out teams. So these are two big wins. Obviously, Brittany Brown has been tremendous on both ends of the floor. Showing her skill set on the offensive end. They're getting great production from players like Mariah Jefferson, and the rest of them. So I love what they bring to the table. Honestly, especially after the poor start that they've had. Who knows? This could possibly be a turnaround. I mean, I know a lot of us, especially myself, kind of said that that the Mercury are going to get like the lower tiers, so it's not making the playoffs. But to me, this is a team where it's kind of tricky because obviously you do have Diana Taurasi, who is a legend. You have Brittany Griner, who is going to be a future Hall of Famer. So, but then you also have like a lot of these young players surrounding them. So the question is, what is their future looking like? Because I don't know. Well, I don't know if he really knows if he's going to retire or anything. I don't know if he really knows that, but is the rest of the roster a team that you can build a team around? And I think that's kind of the question that I do have like if DT decides to retire this year or possibly next year, is this the right team? I mean, we do have great talent like Kayla Winnie, who came from New York. I love her tremendous talent. They got other players as well, Shea Petty and the rest of these players, but I feel like they're in a weird predicament right now as far as are they continuing to be a contender or are they possibly looking to rebuild and move forward? But it's hard to do that when you have a player like Diana Taurasi on the roster who's in like the latter years of her career.
That's a good point. You almost have to. You almost have to like build around Diana Taurasi as long as she is in the W, because I mean, at this point, what else is she going for besides a championship? And they were so close just a couple of seasons ago. So for this Mercury team, I question their depth, but I think you're right, like right on to point out the star power. If only there was a Skylar Dickens-Smith, who knows if she would play, but that would be huge next to BG, who has just been tremendous this entire season in her return.
I can
Um,
say this too, honestly. Like, sorry not to cut you off. I can say this: if Skylar Diggins-Smith was actually playing,
Different
Phoenix might
story.
be like 6, 7 AC. Who knows?
Well, and also to have like a cap hit where not she's on your books, you're paying her. You could be paying someone else. Um,
Right.
like that's just a huge hole to have. Unable to go, but like for Phoenix, like you're absolutely right to point that out. Like it would be totally different story right now if they had Skylar Diggins-Smith. But uh, without her, who is this team's best five lineup?
So my best lineup that I had for them. So obviously DT and Brittany Griner. I had Sophie Cunningham. I had Brianna Turner, and then I was kind of like playing with the point guard position between either Mariah Jefferson and Tuck Sutton in this. I'll probably go. I'll probably go Mariah Jefferson as far as the point guard for this team. As far as their best lineup.
That's interesting. Okay, so I kind of went a different direction where I had BG and DT obviously. I think Sophie's a part of that lineup just because of what she does for that team spacing wise. I think I'd go with Michaela Animuere out there
That's a good pick.
with Should Sutton. I'd go that way instead of Mariah Jefferson. I haven't liked what I've seen from Mo Jeff so far on the season in Phoenix. But
That's fair.
yeah, it's a little tough for this Phoenix Mercury squad, I'd say right now. But as we kind of get through the end, what do you think is the best game plan moving forward? Because I don't know many building blocks outside of Brittany Griner.
I don't know. I mean, it's like I said earlier. Like this team is in a weird predicament right now because it's like, do you really trust a lot of these role players as a team that you can continue to build around moving forward? Like it's like the question is surrounding Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner. If everything went right, like do you think this team could overpower, I don't know, the Aces or the Liberty or the Connecticut Sun? I don't know. I don't know if the supporting cast has the type of firepower to be able to overcome teams like that. So that's my question, moving forward. Like, are there going to be any moving blocks? Could we see possibly like new transactions, especially over the summer? So, I mean, like I said, I mean, I like a lot of the players on the roster. I do think that they're talented, but I don't know if this could be the right supporting cast to move forward that could elevate the team as far as being a playoff contender.
Yeah, that's very fair. If I'm Phoenix moving forward, I am trying to maybe get a clear cap sheet and seeing who wants to come out to the desert to play with BG and DT for however long she has left. But who knows how long she has left? So you might be like the main perimeter player if you do come out to
That's true.
Phoenix. So I mean that's a selling point, and then you just gotta continue to add the young talent, like we mentioned, Michaela Onimwere. Mariah Jefferson was a big pickup for that. Should Sutton, obviously. And then like I like Caddy Sissoko, but they just are pretty limited on what they have in terms of young players at this moment.
Definitely agree, man. Definitely agree.
All right, you're up next here. Who's finishing 10th in the WNBA? I think we're in lockstep right now, but go ahead.
It's tough, man. Really, really tough. This is a team, especially throughout the first half of the W season. I was like, man, this team's gonna make the playoffs. But I think they've kind of had some growing pains, and it's normal, especially for a young team. But I think the Indiana Fever will finish 10th. Kudos to them. They just got their sixth win the other night or the other day, and so kudos to them. Um, so I mean, this is a team that's in a good direction. I know that they got off to a good start of the first half of the W season, and then I think over the past recent weeks they've kind of struggled. I think they lost like 8 in a row at one point or something like that.
Yeah,
But
not
I
great.
don't think people need to I don't think people need to lose faith in the team. I think that this is still a very very good young team. They got a lot of great young talent along the team. Can they make some adjustments? Yes, but what we've seen from Leah Boss is not fluke. She was an all-star starter for a reason. She's putting up tremendous numbers. She's shooting efficiently from the floor. She plays the game right. She's a great passer, great screener, great post player. Definitely showing some range. She ended up hitting that game time shot against New York for the All-Star break to send the game to overtime. So, Aaliyah is a special talent. Alyssa Smith, who ended up going down with the injury as well, I think that she's a tremendous talent. So, to me, it's like, I look at the young players and, I'm looking at the team in the front office. And I'm like, these are like a lot of these young players you need to continue to build around. Leah Boston, Alyssa Smith, players like Grace Berger, Lexi Hull, a lot of these great young talents that, these are talents to me that you can continue to build around for the future to come. So I like this Fever team. I do think that they may slightly miss the playoffs this year, but I'm very excited about what the future holds for them moving forward.
Yeah, with this Fever team, I'm right there with you where I think the young talent shines. I think you've got your two building blocks in Alyssa Smith and Aaliyah Boston. And I'm curious who you can add to that in terms of a guard, potentially through the draft. Which I was right there with you with having Indiana 10th. I think that's a great place for them to be because that gives them a better shot to have that draft pick. Be
Sure.
closer to number one, depending on who that could be come the 2024 draft. But yeah, I'm right there with you, Indiana. A lot of young talent. I think the weakness for me, I'm a little curious about the size down low, where Aaliyah Boston and Alyssa Smith, both almost kind of tweener height for their position, going to struggle in a matchup with Brittany Griner or the like. Obviously, not everybody has Brittany Griner, but there's that. Outside of that, I'm really pretty positive on where this Fever team is. Like you said, Grace Berger, Lexi Hull. Several players I think are positives. A little confused by the Queen Edpo deal, but there's that. Who'd you have on this team's best five lineup?
So my best five lineup, this is kind of tricky. So obviously, when fully healthy, Aaliyah Boston, Alyssa Smith. I added Grace Berger in there. I love what she's been able to get to the table. The shot making, her playmaking. I love what she brings to the table. I would love to see her get more opportunities moving forward. Obviously, Kelsey Mitchell. And then I just put in there Lexi Hope. I love the energy that she brings up offense, especially defense. I know that her shot hasn't really been consistent, but I love what Lexi Hope brings defensively. She's a tough nosed player. She's gonna die for this ball. She's gonna go after the ball. So I love what she brings defensively.
That's a young lineup there, Nick.
It is.
I liked it though. Okay. So when I looked at this team. Obviously, Alyssa Smith, Aaliyah Boston down low. And then, me personally, I'm a big believer in Kelsey Mitchell. I believe in what she brings to the table. I don't think I would go with Lexi Hull just yet. Because, yeah, I'm right there with you, though. I think she just has a few games where she knocks down some shots, gets that confidence up here, and it's just going to be, it's going to click. She's going to figure that out. But in terms of the last two, I guess for right now, I would go with Erica Wheeler, and it's tough after that. You got a lot of good options, but so far it's been Christy Wallace. I've really liked what Christy Wallace has brought to the table.
Christy Wallace, yeah. You know what? You make a point. I'll probably take out Lexi and add Christy. I would say that.
Okay.
But as far as Erica, I'm a fan of Erica Wheeler, but I haven't liked, her play down the stretch of games. So I feel like she's blowing a lot of opportunities. So that's why for me, it's like, when I was watching Grace Berger, especially in the game against New York, I saw being able to make big time shots, and I was thinking, man, if she could get these opportunities, especially down the stretch and closing lineups, who knows where the team could be in those possible situations. So, like I said, I like Erica. I know she's one of the veterans on the team. She definitely deserves her position, but I think over the past few weeks, her play down the stretch, I just haven't really been a big fan.
I am right there with you with the Grace Berger. I just think she is very good and runs a good offense off the bench where she has been so far. I like that. Who do you think though are the kind of the core players, the key building blocks moving forward for Indiana?
Definitely Aaliyah. I'll say Alyssa Smith for now. Like I said, Grace. Christy Wallace is another one. Um, I like Victoria because I like what she's been able to bring to the table as well.
Me too.
Uh, and like Chelsea Mitchell. I think Chelsea Mitchell is essential. With her experience and everything. I think that she's very essential to the team. I think she complements other players as well. So I love Chelsea.
So, okay, I'm glad you include Kelsey Mitchell. I really like that out on the perimeter for Indiana. I mean, I've just been a fan of hers for her whole career for the Fever. In terms of moving forward, I don't know that I would include all of those players in the long term future for building this team up. They might need a few veterans once they really start to win and get things rolling. But I think I'm just looking at the draft for this team where like Paige Beckers, a Caitlin Clark might end up in Indiana. I think that would be dynamite to go along with Nalissa and Aaliyah down low, and
Definitely.
to have a Kelsey Mitchell. But if that doesn't happen, like you don't get them in the draft, well, what's to say maybe a Skylar Dickens Smith comes back home to Indiana or
That's somebody who like if they could make a trade for her, I'd say do it in a heartbeat. I would do it in a heartbeat.
all right, I like that. Yeah. Well, any thoughts on Indiana's long-term future?
Just continue to build Riley Balls. I feel like she's the franchise player for this team. Obviously, when you're selecting number one, I mean, I think that that's the expectation for a franchise is to allow that player to grow into a possible franchise player. And in her first season, obviously she's had highs and she's had her lows, but I think overall she's shown like she has the tangibles of being great moving forward. So that's probably my biggest key for Indiana is just continue to build around the
All right, Nick. At this point, you're gonna stick it to me. I have to pick the last team missing the playoffs over here, as we
Ooh,
today's episode discussing the
tricky.
non-playoff teams, and this is
Might
really
upset some people.
this is tough with an LA and a Chicago and a Minnesota. But as of right now, I think Chicago's missing the playoffs.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Who did you have kind of in that ninth spot?
Who did I have in the ninth spot? Honestly, it's tough. I was gonna say the Sparks, even though it hurts me because coming into the year,
It's rough right now.
to me, like fully healthy, this is a playoff team. The Sparks are a playoff team, obviously led by Nneka Onwuchekwa. They ended up getting Erica Hamby in the trade this past offseason, who is coming off of a championship. You get play like Azurá Stevens as well. So I'm looking at this roster, I'm like, man, this is a playoff team. But health has not been on their side. Thank God, Lexi Brown came back. She came back in Thursday's matchup against the Minnesota Lynx. But it just seems like between injuries, being healthy, I think down the stretch the spots have not been executed properly, and they put a lot of opportunities just based off of that. So it's tough. I mean, right now it's 7-14, and I
Lost
don't know if
seven
they
in
could
a
possibly
row.
turn it around. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's still enough games to possibly turn it around, but if they could possibly get healthy and if they can, make some adjustments within the lines or within the sets, they can possibly make it. But as of right now, it's not really looking too well for them.
With LA losing seven in a row, I think like they get back to full health. I think they'll string some wins together. That's my hope for maybe an eight seed. We both feel good about Minnesota, so we'll leave them out of this show as we're talking about the non-playoff teams. But we'll go quickly on each of these two teams. You just touched a lot on LA, so we'll start there. I agree with you. It's just been a health thing. That's their largest weakness. I think that and maybe a lack of wins, forwards or so. But
Definitely.
um, I think they're once they did it together though. Kurt Miller runs a tight ship. He's got a good show going on out in LA. Neta obviously the largest strength. You gotta love what you've seen from Jordan Canada. And I think
He's the
that
most improved player today.
all right. I go with Satu right now, but that's a fair choice. For my best five for LA, I got Jordan Canada, Lexi Brown in my backcourt. You've got Neta. I'm really high on Azurá Stevens. I just don't know that she's being utilized right. in LA right
I don't
now?
think so either. I don't think so. Because I feel like in Chicago, she's more versatility. I feel like now LA, she's becoming more like a floor space, more of a spot shooter. And it's like, I guess it's like, when you watch Ad break through the past 2 years, you know that she's capable of doing way more. But I don't know if Kurt's utilizing her correctly right now.
All right, and then how do you finish out those last two spots? Do you put a Carly Samuelson in there right now, or
I think you could add more shooting. I mean, obviously, at the time you do have Lexi in there, so that definitely does help. But if you want to add a player like Carly in there, I wouldn't mind it as well. I love your take on like having Ezra in there because I mean she does bring size, but I'm a fan of De'Erica Hamby. I think you gotta have her in there. I think she makes all the right plays at the right time. She's great defensively. She can guard multiple positions. Not saying that Ezra is not great, but I love what De'Erica's just brought to the table with this team. I know that with her in the lineup, you do like a little bit of size, especially protecting the basket and being able to, crash the boards. But I just love the air adds to the team, especially when she's on the floor.
so with LA? It kind of seems like a team that is a little disappointing. We want them to make the playoffs. What do you think they need to do moving forward, like into the offseason, to build up this team around Nete Jumake?
It's tough because honestly, I mean, it's like I said, like when I look at this team, especially coming into this year, I expected them to make the playoffs. So I think that they do have a playoff team surrounding good. Now, obviously, are they going to be better than teams like Vegas or New York or Connecticut or even possibly the Mystics when healthy? Or maybe I think maybe the Mystics, like a healthy Mystics and a healthy Stars neck and neck. Who knows? Like I said, I mean, this is a good playoff team when they are healthy, but I think that's really just like the thing about it. Got to get healthy. At least have at least 80-90% of their rotation out there. But so if they can have that, I like the confidence in them possibly making the playoffs this year. And then of course moving forward, building around that guy.
Okay, so when I look at building around Neta, I agree with you that this is a playoff team. But into the offseason, I'm doing star hunting. I want some like Talia Topper free agent.
That's a good one.
Let's go explore like obviously probably not available, but trades for Jewel Lloyd or I mean let's get crazy, Arite Jumbawale, like something like that for LA.
That's honestly interesting. I wonder who will be free agents this upcoming offseason.
Yeah, I have to pull up the list, but I know Talia Topper is, and I think Kurt Miller would like really figure out how to use her in the best way possible with Neta.
Definitely.
All right, we'll touch quickly then on Chicago, the team that has Talia Topper right now. They move on, or James Wade moves on, and they started off well, and they have not been great since. But where does Chicago stand at this moment?
It's kind of a roller coaster right now with the sky. I mean, it's like you mentioned, the whole James Wade situation. I think kind of, I guess, you say, in a way, kind of help the team back now. Obviously, they have new coaches, they have a new system, so I think they are trying to adjust in a way. But also, when I look at this team, I mean, through the course of like the first part of the season, I really love what they had. I think one of my biggest questions was the front court presence because when you look at the W, like there's just so many dominant front courts. Like a healthy Vegas, you have Candace Parker and Aisha Wilson. Connecticut, you had Alyssa Thompson before she got hurt. Even in New York, you had Brianna Stewart and Jacob Jones. So that was kind of my question. For Chicago, like, they have a good enough court to be able to match against a lot of these top tier opponents. But I love what I've seen from players like Alana Smith. I love what I've seen from players like Elizabeth Williams. I love what they've been able to bring to the table. Um, Obviously, she's a number one option for this team. I thought she had a really good third quarter in Thursday communities, but unfortunately, it just wasn't enough to overpower them. But I love she's been able to get to the table, especially as an attacker. She's going to get to the basket at will. She's going to finish around the basket. Her perimeter scoring does, it's got some times, but when she is in rhythm, she can knock down shots. Um, Obviously, Courtney Williams, who is respected as one of the best perimeter scorers in the league, with her shot making. One thing I will say is I would love Dana Evans in the starting lineup. I think that's just like my
Oh,
dream right now. I really love what she's been able to. I mean, but then again, I can also understand because Dana, a lot of times Dana can really turn the ball over a lot, and I've seen a lot of times where especially in the fourth quarters, where Dana will have like 2 turnovers on 2 possessions, and then Coach will be able to just snatch it right out. So, but I love her confidence. I love her confidence in the game. I love that she's able to be a great on-ball defender, a great perimeter defender. So, I think that's my question for me. But it's also tough too because you gotta love what Marie May can bring to the table. But that's like my dream is like possibly see Dana Evans, run keys and just being able to control the offense and start on your offense team. But besides that, I still have Chicago in playoffs. I know that they've been in a struggle recently. I still think this team's good enough. You're still led by Clay Copper, the former MVP, a former champion. Courtney Williams, she's been a few times in her career as well. So a lot of players on this team who do have some playoff experience and understand what it does take to win, and being able to get to that level. So, even though it has been a struggle for Chicago as of recent, I still have faith in that this team could possibly make the playoffs at the end of the year.
All right, you know what? I'll take that. I had Chicago in the playoffs before the year. They very well could. It's going to be really tight coming down the stretch here for these non-playoff teams. And Nick, thank you so much for joining me here on a pro basketball show as we get down to the wire. You think we're kind of in line on those first 3 where we got Seattle, Phoenix, Indiana. You've got LA missing. I've got Chicago out. But this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining.
Yes, sir, man. Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
We will talk to you here shortly because, again, one of the best.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, make sure to follow and subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Make sure to follow on Twitter and Instagram at APBShow and follow me at the AC Willett 22. Thank you so much for tuning in for a pro basketball show. I am Andrew Willett.